Chris Holmes, this guy's still rocking. He just did a show in Sweden. If you've seen the infamous documentary, The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, Chris Holmes is the guy in the swimming pool on that floating raft or whatever who is beyond drunk. And a lot of people thought that he would not live very long. Yet he surprisingly has lived. He's still around and still performing shows. So good for him, I guess. It's a great documentary if you haven't seen it. It's just follows around rock musicians, some of them real big names like Dave Mustaine or Gene Simmons or Alice Cooper. And then you got bands like Odin, who are pretty forgotten in the rock world and never really broke on the scene. But they're all in there talking about trying to make it or sustaining their success. It's a good watch if you like rock music. Check out that documentary. Part 1 was hardcore punk scene of the early 80s. It was an okay watch as well, but I like Part 2 better, just more entertaining. And like I said, that scene with Chris Holmes, who was getting wasted, I mean, laying on that raft, just crazy things he was saying. Said, the woman asked him, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And he said, oh, well, of course I'll be dead. Yet here we are, probably 25 years later, and he's still rocking out today. So he turned it around, I think. I mean, I would imagine. Unless he's still drinking and somehow still alive. I don't know.
I've heard some of their songs, yes.
Okay,
I don't follow them, but...
They have released a new music video with Corey Taylor from the band Slipknot.
Ooh.
So there's that. If you Slipknot fans out there want to check that out, Corey Taylor meets Korn.
What do you think about music videos?
Okay.
Do you think it kind of changes the song?
I do. I really do. Like, for example, the Foo Fighters song, My Hero. Do you know that song? Mm-hmm. Like, when I hear it, I always used to think that song was about Kurt Cobain. And like, you know, when you just hear the song, it'd be like, whoa, man, this is, you know, it brought up some emotion in me as a huge Nirvana fan. Then I saw the video where it's very generic. It's a guy running into a house, like a burning house, saving people. It's like a basic hero premise, you know? And, yeah, you're right. It changed my view of that song a little bit. Mm-hmm. When I hear it, I think, you know, I'd like to think of what I initially thought of, but now I sometimes do picture the video. So, I mean, yeah, it's a good point. So, all right, I got some breaking news out of the rock world that may upset a lot of people. But this just in, Linkin Park singer Chester Bennington has committed suicide by hanging himself. His body was discovered Thursday morning. And now just another rock casualty, I guess. I remember he took over in Stone Temple Pilots for a while after they kicked Scott Weiland out of the band. Scott Weiland died just a couple years ago. And here in the article it says his body was found in L.A. in his residence just before 9 a.m. He was married with 6 children, and he had 2 wives. It says he had a long history of drug and alcohol abuse, and he contemplated suicide before. I guess he has talked about. It says he was also very close with Chris Cornell, who just last month, maybe 2 months ago, he hung himself. So, interesting. And on a side note, it says today would have also been Chris Cornell's 53rd birthday. So, I don't know if that has any significance to any of this, but Chester Bennington, dead at 41, singer for Linkin Park. And like I said, I remember when he did a sort of a fill-in for STP, which I was just talking earlier in the show. Not a fan of things like that. I think let the band rest, as you cannot replace certain guys. So I don't know if somebody's going to try to take over for him in that band, but I don't know what his feelings would have been about that. But a lot to discuss now, as I'm sure this will be a pretty big story over the next few days. Now, again, this is Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. All right, now listen to this one. Tupac Shakur.
I know.
This is not rock and roll. This is my one of my big complaints with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is that if you're going to call it that, let it be just rock music.
Just rock music, yeah.
What else we got here?
The Cars, that's definitely a contender.
Yeah.
I remember as a little girl, like, looking, my dad had an album from the Cars, and I just remember staring at the sleeve, because it was so cool looking. Like, I loved it.
You know, and that's a good point. Nobody has the physical copies anymore. Everything's digital.
Yeah.
And you can't, like, that stuff, like, that catches your eye. Back in the day, we were past those times, and it does kind of suck in a way. You say this, but there are so many bands, great bands, that are not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'll give you a couple right now. Megadeth. And they've been around since, the early 80s.
Forever.
It's like insulting to true rock. And another band you could say is Pantera. I mean, so it's crazy.
I think Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is lost there.
Yeah, I mean, really, if you're going to lose credibility if you put Tupac and Janet Jackson and leave out Megadeth and Pantera.
You should circle back to the rock bands before
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, that is surprising. I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a ton of that.
So Metallica?
Metallica's in.
Okay,
Metallica
all right.
is in.
That's wow.
Yeah, they're not very kind to metal bands. I think it took them forever to put Black Sabbath in, but eventually they got in.
Metallica, I was definitely one of those bands like my parents listened to when I was a kid, and so that's what I grew up with, like Black Sabbath and Megadeth. And Metallica was definitely one of those bands. It was like life-changing.
Absolutely. Their first like 4 or 5 albums are almost flawless. They're just so good. But, anyway, there's a lot of bands that should be in and are not. Motorhead, that's another one.
Love Motorhead.
Yeah, Motorhead's awesome. And, Lemmy just died. And, come on, they should have put him in. It's crazy. Anyway, all right, there's some Rock and Roll Hall of Fame talk for you.